There are moments in life when you begin to realize how much of yourself you lose simply because people do not let you speak. They interrupt. They talk over you. They dismiss your thoughts before they hear them. And slowly, without noticing, you shrink your voice just to keep the peace. But Stoic philosophy teaches something radically different. Your voice is not something the world chooses to value. It is something you choose to protect. Marcus Aurelius taught that the world will test your voice with noise, but the wise person learns how to remain centered in every room. Epictetus warned that if you do not claim authority over your speech, others will claim it for you. And Einstein believed that calm clarity will always be more powerful than loud chaos. Today, you're going to learn 3 Stoic phrases that instantly stop interruptions, command respect, and shift the room back to your presence, without aggression, without conflict, and without losing yourself. These phrases are simple, but they carry psychological strength, emotional intelligence, and centuries of Stoic wisdom behind them. And I want you to listen until the end, because each phrase carries a different kind of power, one that can change how you communicate at home, at work, in relationships, in arguments, and in every conversation you enter for the rest of your life. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how to reclaim your voice with calm authority. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to this channel, The Inner Fortress, so you never miss the wisdom that strengthens your mind, sharpens your presence, and elevates your entire life. Phrase 1, I'll continue. There is a rare kind of calm power that enters a room when someone speaks with intention, steadiness, and self-possession. It is not the loudest voice. It is not the most dramatic person. It is the individual who understands their own worth so deeply that they do not need to fight for visibility. And one of the most powerful expressions of that inner worth is the simple, unshaking phrase, I'll continue. These 2 words are not aggressive, not emotional, not defensive. They are anchored. They are rooted. They are the verbal expression of quiet authority. When you use them, you teach people something important. Your voice will not disappear simply because someone else speaks faster, louder, or without thought. People interrupt for many reasons. Some are impatient. Some assume they already know what you're going to say. Some want to dominate the conversation. Some are anxious listeners who rush to fill silence. And some simply lack awareness. But the effect on you is always the same. Interruption chips away at your presence. It fragments your thoughts. It makes you feel smaller in the moment. And if you experience it too often, you begin to subconsciously shrink your voice. But when you respond with, I'll continue, you interrupt that shrinking process. You reset the dynamic instantly. You show that your voice still has motion, still has direction, still has weight. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a person who remains rooted within themselves naturally commands the attention of others without raising their voice. I'll continue is exactly that kind of rootedness. When someone cuts you off and you calmly say those words, you demonstrate a level of self-respect that forces others to pause. You don't match their energy. You don't escalate. You don't surrender. You simply take your place back at the center of the conversation. You regain momentum without creating conflict. People stop because they feel your certainty, not because you demanded silence. This phrase is especially powerful in relationships. Imagine you're trying to express something important to someone you love, your partner, a parent, a sibling, a friend, but every time you speak, they jump in with their assumptions, corrections, or emotions. You feel unheard. You feel unseen. You feel your thoughts being sliced apart before they can form fully. But when you calmly say, I'll continue, you reclaim emotional space without hurting the relationship. You are showing them, with gentle firmness, that your words deserve completion. You are reminding them that listening is just as important as speaking. You are building a healthier communication pattern. Epictetus taught that you cannot control other people's behavior, but you can control how you allow their behavior to enter your inner world. When you say, "I'll continue," you protect that inner world. You protect your calm. You protect your clarity. You protect your emotional boundaries. You don't let their interruption set the tone. You don't let the moment spiral. You don't let your thoughts get stolen. You remain the author of your message. This is what Stoicism looks like in real-life conversations, not silence, not aggression, but controlled presence. This phrase becomes even more essential in environments where people compete for attention. In group conversations, meetings, or social settings, stronger personalities often dominate. The quieter voices often get overshadowed. But, "I'll continue," neutralizes that dynamic. It places you back in the center without pushing anyone aside. It signals that you are not done. And because it is firm without being confrontational, others accept it without defensiveness. They give you space. They lean back. They listen. People naturally respect the tone of someone who respects themselves. Einstein once said that simplicity is the highest form of intelligence. And this phrase is simple, almost disarmingly simple. That is why it works. You are not lecturing the interrupter on why interruptions are rude. You are not explaining your feelings. You are not raising your voice. You are simply redirecting the conversation back to your message. The power is in its minimalism. Few words, maximum impact. You regain your voice with a whisper, not a shout. There is also a psychological shift that happens inside you the moment you use this phrase. You begin to recognize your own value in new ways. People who have been interrupted repeatedly often start to talk fast, shorten their thoughts, or speak with hesitation. They assume they must rush to be heard. They assume they must shrink their message to fit the impatience of others. But when you start saying, "I'll continue," you reverse that internal conditioning. You let your mind know that your thoughts deserve time. You let your emotions know they deserve space. You let your voice know it deserves completion. You rebuild confidence from the inside out. In professional environments, this phrase can change your entire presence. Workplaces are full of people who interrupt unintentionally, or intentionally. Some do it to appear more knowledgeable. Some do it to control the direction of the conversation. Some do it out of insecurity. But when you respond with, "I'll continue," you send a message that you cannot be easily overshadowed. You may be calm, but you are not passive. You may be polite, but you are not silent. You may be composed, but you are not someone who disappears in the noise. This quiet assertiveness makes people see you as someone with leadership presence. Someone who speaks with intention. Someone who finishes their thoughts. Even in moments of conflict, this phrase protects you. Arguments often escalate because someone gets interrupted before they finish explaining themselves. Emotions rise. Misunderstandings grow. Clarity dies. But when you say, "I'll continue," you pull the moment back into structure. You communicate that you refuse to be swept into the emotional storm. You stay on your point. You refuse to be derailed. You keep the conversation aligned with truth rather than reaction. This is Stoic emotional discipline, the ability to remain centered while others lose their center. This phrase is also a teacher. When you use it consistently, people begin to understand how to treat you. They start waiting before speaking. They listen longer. They give more space. They interrupt less. They adjust their behavior naturally, not because you told them to, but because your presence instructed them. Stoicism teaches that influence without force is the highest form of influence. Your calm boundary becomes a signal. A reminder, a quiet training of the dynamic. And this phrase is just as powerful in digital conversations. Video calls, audio messages, online meetings, and group calls often cause more interruptions because people cannot feel the subtle cues of body language. But, "I'll continue," still resets the moment. Even through a screen, your tone communicates presence. Your phrasing communicates intention. People pause and listen. You bring the structure back into the conversation. This phrase even helps in emotionally vulnerable moments. When you are opening up, your voice is already fragile. A single interruption can make you shut down. But saying, "I'll continue," gives you emotional permission to keep going. It reminds you that your feelings are worth expressing. It protects the moment of courage you stepped into. It tells your heart, your truth has space here. And that self-validation is one of the purest forms of emotional strength. Over time, something profound happens. This phrase becomes a reflection of your identity. You begin to walk through life with the energy of someone who finishes everything they start. Their sentences, their thoughts, their purpose, their growth. People who interrupt you sense that you will not let the moment slip away. People who listen to you feel the depth of your presence. And you yourself begin to trust your own voice more deeply. And this phrase doesn't just apply to conversations with others. It applies to the conversation you have with yourself. When your fear interrupts your courage, you can say, "I'll continue." When your stress interrupts your peace, "I'll continue." When your insecurity interrupts your progress, "I'll continue." When life itself interrupts your path, "I'll continue." This is the Stoic mentality: persistence without panic, direction without doubt, calmness without collapse. Before we close this phrase, remember this: your voice carries meaning. Your voice deserves space. Your voice deserves completion. And if someone interrupts it, you do not need force to claim it back. You only need presence. You only need calm authority. You only need the clarity to say, "I'll continue." And before we move to the next Stoic phrase, make sure you subscribe to this channel, The Inner Fortress, so you never miss videos that elevate your communication, strengthen your self-respect, and build the unshakable version of yourself. Phrase 2, as I was saying, there is something powerful about a person who refuses to be pulled into the noise of others. A person who does not fight for space, does not raise their voice, does not rush their thoughts, but simply reclaims their place in the conversation with calm precision. And that is exactly what the phrase, "as I was saying," does. It is a gentle redirect with the strength of a boundary. It is the verbal equivalent of a steady hand on the steering wheel, guiding the conversation back to its rightful path. It does not confront the interrupter. It corrects them. It does not accuse. It realigns. And that is why this simple phrase feels so powerful in every environment. Marcus Aurelius wrote that true authority flows from inner order, not outward force. When someone interrupts you and you respond with, "as I was saying," you demonstrate that inner order. You show that you are not shaken by the noise around you. You are not intimidated by their urgency. You are not silenced by their impatience. You are simply returning to your thought, the thought that mattered enough for you to speak it in the first place. People can feel the difference between someone who speaks from ego and someone who speaks from clarity. This phrase positions you firmly in clarity. The beauty of this phrase is that it resets the room without creating friction. Most people expect a reaction when they interrupt someone. They expect frustration, defensiveness, withdrawal, or silence. But when you calmly say, "as I was saying," you disarm their expectation. You deny them the emotional chaos they created. You refuse to match their energy. Instead, you offer direction. You bring structure back to the moment. And because the phrase is neutral, the other person cannot argue with it. They simply fall quiet. They have claimed the floor with maturity. This is why Epictetus emphasized the importance of controlling your response rather than reacting to someone else's behavior. He believed that maintaining your center was the highest form of strength. And, as I was saying, is a direct expression of that teaching. It is not passive. It is not submissive. It is assertive. It is a way of saying, my thoughts are still in motion. I am not done. And people listen because calm confidence creates its own gravity. In relationships, this phrase brings emotional balance. Miscommunication often happens not because people don't care, but because they listen to respond instead of listening to understand. They jump in with their interpretations, their assumptions, their emotions. But when you say, as I was saying, you gently signal that your message still needs space. You redirect the conversation back to your heart, back to your truth. You remind your partner or friend that your voice carries meaning too. And because you are not attacking them, they can receive the correction without becoming defensive. Healthy relationships grow in the soil of gentle boundaries. In the workplace, this phrase becomes a hidden leadership skill. Meetings are often chaotic. People talk over each other to seem competent. Some interrupt because they want control. Others interrupt because they are nervous. But when you say, as I was saying, colleagues immediately recognize something different about you. You're not fighting for relevance. You're not trying to overpower the room. You're demonstrating that you expect respect simply through the way you guide the conversation. This makes people listen even more carefully when you speak again. Quiet authority is remembered long after loud reactions are forgotten. Einstein once said that clarity is power, and nothing brings clarity to a disrupted conversation like this phrase. It refocuses the room. It brings everyone back to the point. It tells them, without emotion, that the conversation has a direction, and you were the one leading it before the interruption. In a world full of distractions and scattered thinking, anyone who can guide a moment back to purpose stands out immediately. What makes this phrase truly transformative is the psychological lesson it teaches you. Many people lose confidence because they allow interruptions to break the flow of their thoughts. They step back, they stay silent, they let others carry the conversation. Over time, they begin to believe that their voice cannot hold space. But when you say, as I was saying, you train your mind to stay steady. You remind yourself that your words deserve air. You remind yourself that your ideas matter. You remind yourself that your voice carries value. This is how self-respect is rebuilt, not through shouting, but through small acts of reclaimed presence. Even in emotionally heavy conversations, this phrase softens conflict. When tension rises, people interrupt more. Emotions speed up thinking. But when you calmly say, as I was saying, you slow the moment back down. You bring the conversation from chaos back into structure. You show emotional maturity by not taking the interruption personally. You guide the moment toward understanding instead of escalation. Stoicism has always been about guiding the self, and this phrase helps you guide the conversation. In friendships, this phrase preserves balance. Friends may interrupt out of excitement or familiarity, but repeated interruptions can still make you feel unseen. This phrase allows you to express a boundary without harming the bond. You are gently telling your friend, I still have something meaningful to say. And because it is gentle, the friendship deepens rather than cracks. This phrase also disarms manipulation. Some people interrupt intentionally to control narratives. They try to steer the conversation in their favor or weaken your message. But when you respond with, as I was saying, you neutralize their tactic. You take control back instantly. You redirect the flow. You refuse to be derailed. And because the phrase is calm and simple, they have no ground to challenge it. Stoic strength is often quiet, but deeply effective, and this phrase proves that. There is also emotional intelligence behind this phrase. It teaches patience. It teaches confidence. It teaches self-regulation. When you use it often, you develop a communication style that is grounded and intentional. People stop seeing you as someone who can be cut off. They start seeing you as someone who finishes their thoughts, someone who speaks with purpose, someone who carries presence. And presence is more powerful than volume. Over time, as I was saying, becomes more than just a correction, it becomes a reflection of who you are becoming. You become someone who does not get knocked off balance. Someone who does not lose their direction. Someone who returns to their point with clarity. Someone who does not allow their voice to fragment. A person who stays aligned with their message becomes a person who stays aligned with their life. This is the heart of Stoicism. And this phrase is not only about how you talk to others, it is also a way to speak to yourself. When your self-doubt interrupts your confidence, you can say, as I was saying. When your fear interrupts your growth, as I was saying. When life interrupts your progress, as I was saying. You redirect your inner voice back to strength. You remind yourself of your original path. You return yourself to your purpose. Phrase 3, let me finish. There is a turning point in every conversation when you realize that silence is no longer a sign of peace, it is a sign that your voice is being swallowed. It is the moment when someone cuts you off, not because they understand you, but because they want to lead you somewhere you did not choose. In that moment, you feel your presence shrink, your message collapse, and your confidence fade. But Stoicism offers a response that restores your balance instantly. A phrase that stands firm without aggression, sets boundaries without conflict, and reminds the world that your voice has value. That phrase is, let me finish. This phrase is powerful because it does not ask for permission, it asserts it doesn't attack the other person, it protects your voice. It doesn't escalate the moment, it resets it. Stoicism teaches that dignity is not loud, it is steady. And this phrase embodies that dignity. Marcus Aurelius wrote that your inner peace is something you preserve through action, not through silence. When you say, let me finish, you are acting from clarity, not from anger. You are stepping back into your voice with firmness and calm. People interrupt for different reasons. Some interrupt out of excitement, some out of impatience, and some out of ego. Some interrupt to dominate, others to escape discomfort. And some interrupt because they are not truly listening, they are only waiting for their turn to talk. But regardless of the reason, interruption always produces the same effect inside you. It breaks your flow, it weakens your message, it chips at your confidence. This is why, let me finish, becomes essential. You are reclaiming the space that was taken from you, not through force, but through presence. In relationships, this phrase is a form of emotional self-respect. Many conflicts grow not because the couple disagrees, but because one person never gets the chance to fully express themselves. Their feelings get interrupted. Their truth gets cut off. Their voice gets overshadowed by the louder emotions of the other person. But when you softly and calmly say, let me finish, you create an opening for your heart to speak. You tell your partner that your feelings are not fragments. They are full sentences, complete thoughts, emotional truths that deserve space. You show them how to love you better, not by shouting, but by staying grounded. Epictetus said, if you do not assert your own clarity, others will fill your silence with their assumptions. That is exactly what happens when we stay quiet after being interrupted. People fill our silence with their version of our thoughts, their interpretation of our meaning, their projection of our emotions. "Let me finish," stops that immediately. It prevents misunderstanding. It prevents emotional distortion. It protects your truth from being rewritten by someone else's impatience. In the workplace, this phrase is a tool of leadership. Meetings often become battles of confidence rather than exchanges of ideas. People interrupt to show authority or intelligence. But when you say, "Let me finish," you shift the entire power dynamic. You show that your voice stands tall even when someone tries to overshadow it. You show that you will not allow your expertise to be buried. You show that you respect yourself enough to finish your point. And people begin to respect you for it. Leadership is not about speaking the most, it's about speaking with intention. This phrase restores that intention. Einstein once said that clarity requires courage. And this phrase is an act of courage. Simple, direct, but courageous. It takes strength to stop the momentum of someone else's voice and recenter your own. It takes courage to interrupt an interruption. It takes self-worth to believe that your thoughts deserve time. When you calmly say, "Let me finish," you are telling the world that your message is not something to be stepped over. It is something to be heard. There is also a psychological benefit you gain every time you use this phrase. You begin to trust your voice more. People who are constantly interrupted often internalize a sense of smallness. They start speaking faster, thinking faster, or doubting themselves. They feel rushed. They feel pressured. They feel invisible. But when you use this phrase consistently, you teach your own mind that your voice has weight. You remind yourself that your thoughts are valid. You rebuild the confidence that interruptions try to erode. This is inner work disguised as communication. In friendships, this phrase helps prevent resentment. Friends may interrupt you out of excitement, but repeated interruptions can make you feel unheard. Instead of staying silent and holding resentment, "Let me finish," gives you a gentle way to protect your space. It allows the friendship to grow with better communication. It teaches your friend that while you appreciate their enthusiasm, your voice still matters. There are also moments when this phrase protects you from emotional harm. In arguments or heated discussions, people interrupt not to listen, but to win. They cut you off to control the narrative. They dominate the moment to overpower your point. But, "Let me finish," stands between you and that emotional force. It stops the escalation. It slows the moment down. It creates a pause where clarity can enter. You regain your emotional balance. You regain your perspective. You regain your message. Stoicism teaches that you cannot always control what others say, but you control what you allow. This phrase is how you enforce that control. You do not allow disrespect. You do not allow emotional steamrolling. You do not allow your voice to fade into someone else's volume. You place a boundary between you and the chaos, a boundary that does not offend, but protects. Even in group settings, this phrase becomes essential. When multiple people speak at once, it is easy for your voice to be drowned out. But when you say, "Let me finish," you cut through the noise with clarity. You anchor the group. You remind everyone of the thread of the conversation. You bring back order. People who speak with structure always stand out in chaotic environments. And the beauty of this phrase is that it does not just speak to others, it speaks to you. When your fear interrupts your courage, you can say, "Let me finish." When your insecurity interrupts your progress, "Let me finish." When your anxiety interrupts your clarity, "Let me finish." You become your own guide. You return to your own path. You regain your own voice. Marcus Aurelius believed that self-command is one of the highest virtues. And this phrase is a form of self-command. You are not losing control. You are directing the moment. You are not reacting emotionally. You are responding intentionally. You are not being pushed out of the conversation. You are holding your place with quiet dignity. Before we close this phrase, remember this: your voice matters. Your presence matters. Your words deserve completion. And anytime someone interrupts the truth you are trying to express, you have the right, and the strength, to say, "Let me finish." If this message spoke to you, if it strengthened you, if it helped you understand your own voice better, then make sure you subscribe to my channel, The Inner Fortress. Subscribe so you never miss the daily wisdom that strengthens your mind, sharpens your presence, and builds a version of you that no interruption can silence. Finally, every conversation you enter from this moment forward will feel different. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. You now carry 3 simple Stoic phrases that reshape how people treat your voice, how they respond to your presence, and how you stand inside moments of noise, pressure, and emotional intensity. These phrases are not magic tricks, they are boundaries made of clarity. They are reminders of your inner worth. They are tools that teach others how to speak to you, listen to you, and respect you. And more importantly, they teach you how to respect your own voice again. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that a person becomes unstoppable the moment they stop abandoning themselves. Today, you took a powerful step toward that inner strength. Epictetus taught that your voice is part of your dignity, and you protect it through calm self-command. You've learned exactly how to do that. And Einstein believed that simplicity reveals truth. These simple phrases will reveal the truth of your presence every time you use them. So as you leave this video, carry these words with you. Use them in your relationships. Use them at work. Use them with friends. Use them when life interrupts your thoughts or your courage. Let these phrases become part of the unshakable version of yourself, the version that does not get lost in the noise, the version that speaks with calm authority, the version that finishes what it starts. And before you go, I want to speak to you directly. If this message strengthened you, if it made you think differently, if it gave you clarity, confidence, or inner power, make sure you subscribe to my channel, The Inner Fortress. Subscribe so you never miss the Stoic wisdom that builds your mind, sharpens your presence, and protects your peace. Subscribe because your voice, your growth, and your inner strength deserve a space where they can rise every single day. Thank you for watching, and remember, your voice matters, and the world will learn that. As long as you don't abandon it.